So, you have anything to say about this whole thing, Henry?
The reason we're out here is trying to make people aware of what's going on. There's a lot of people thinking that we're out here for greed and for extra toys and things like that, which is not the case. It's basically just to make a living. We're dealing with CEO greed, and for the public that out there that thinks we might be coming here for greed, all they have to do is look at the CEO greed that's going on everywhere. You got the AIG, you got the banks, you got the automobile industry, all these CEOs, the greed is just blinding. And that's the same thing that's going on with this movie industry. You got people that are just trying to make a living, trying to get residuals of something that they actually live on. You have actors who do guest star roles, and they're only allowed to be on a show for one time in a year through that season. So if they work one time, they can't make a living that one day. So the residuals that they get from working on that show is part of the thing that keeps them alive. Not any extra things. That's it. And then part of the problem too with people, the reason we're here is we have the leaders in our union. We had Doug Allen and Alan Rosenberg who were actually fighting for us. They were made out to be difficult people, but when you're dealing with difficult people on the other side that don't want to negotiate with you, that are just, when they give you something and say that they're not going to talk anymore, it's the same thing they did with the writers, and they tell the writers, this is the deal, we're not going to negotiate. This is our offer and we're not going to talk to you anymore. So the same thing with us. They're giving our Doug Allen, Alan Rosenberg were fighting them. They were fighting for the membership, and that's what we need to do, have somebody fighting for the membership. The problem is, most of the people in this country, unfortunately, when something goes wrong, they'll complain to their husband and their wife or their neighbor, but nobody gets out and does anything. Any other country you get out, anytime anything goes bad, you get the whole country comes out. The government does something, if the business does something, these people let you know how they feel. And we have Doug Allen is doing that. Alan Rosenberg, they were trying to do something like that. The guy that we have in there, David White and John McGuire, they're not doing anything. They're not asking for strike authorization. When Doug Allen and Alan Rosenberg were asking about that, they weren't saying we want to strike. They're saying this is the power we have. If you don't want to make a fair contract, then we have the right to vote. The right to strike for you. These guys that are in there now are doing absolutely nothing to fight for us. They are just laying down and letting these people dictate to us what our livelihood is going to be. And that's why we're out here. We're out here trying to make people aware of our plight.
Well, as a member myself, Henry, I couldn't agree with you more about the corporate greed. Is it fair to say then that our employers, the big faceless conglomerates, are so out of touch of reality, or even to a certain extent, sort of nothing left in an ounce of humanity in them, because they're always focused on making the bottom line or increasing their profit margin? Is that a fair assessment?
Absolutely. They don't care. Their greed is blinding. They don't care about anybody. They know exactly what they're doing. Back in 30, 35 years ago, when the cable deal went down, they knew exactly what they were going to do. We had a meeting with SAG at the Palladium, and that was 30, 35 years ago. We're talking about one of the members got up and said, this new thing called cable, we should put something, a contract in place. Something in place so when it goes, we'll be protected. Our board, SAG board at that time, said, oh no, we talked to the producers. The producers said, no, they don't know what's going to happen, and they weren't running commercials, so they weren't making money, which was true. They weren't running commercials, but they didn't know what they were going to make. So let's let them run with it, and in 3 years we'll renegotiate and see. This guy, infuriated, said, this thing is going to be huge. We need to set something in place. If you set something in place, and say, if you make this much money, we make this much money. Real simple. If you don't make this much money, then you don't have to pay this much money. That's 35 years ago. We've never renegotiated anything on the for cable. And you talk about greed. You know, they talk about, well, the AFTRA. Why you guys think you should get more than the directors or AFTRA? So they make an inferior deal with AFTRA and directors and anybody else, and they want us to honor that. So they're comparing. Well, then, if that's the case, and they want to get into comparisons, there was a CEO, a banking CEO, that I saw a couple of weeks ago, which was at 2 o'clock in the morning on CNN. It hasn't been run constantly like it should be. This CEO, banking CEO, got a $60 million bonus last year. He decided to take his $60 million bonus, that was his, and divide it among all the workers. He even went out and found some workers that were not there anymore to make sure they got their share. So if you want to start comparing, you greedy CEOs, why don't you compare that? Take your $100 million bonuses and put it into the pot for the average person so we can have a nice living.
So it is a classic case of cutting out their wallets at the expense of us, the little guys, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, how much money is enough? How much money is enough?
I couldn't agree with you more. I always say, Henry, that, hey, you cannot take all that money when you die.
No, you can't. It doesn't matter.
Well said, Henry. Thank you very much. And what's your name again?
Henry Kingi.
Thank you, Henry.
Okay, thank you.